CEO panel discussion on the Great Unlock, Turning Crisis Change into Opportunities. Our session will be moderated by Mr. Rajat Wahi, Partner Consulting, Deloitte India. May I also welcome our expert panelists. We have with us Mr. Kamal Bali, President and Managing Director, Volvo Group. May I also present to you Mr. Tapan Singhal, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company Limited. A very warm welcome to Mr. Puneet Sood, India Head, NatWest Group India. May I also present to you Mr. Rohit Sabu, Chief Executive Officer and President, National Engineering Industries Limited. A very warm welcome to Mr. Devendra Chawla, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Spencer's Retail and Nature's Basket. A warm welcome to Mr. Ashish Dhawan, Managing Director, Enterprise, Mid-Market and Global Business, South Asia, Amazon Web Series, as we look forward to a lot of learning and engaging ideas right here. May I now hand over to Mr. Rajat Wahi for moderating the session.
Morning, Isha. Morning, everyone. Slightly bizarre times to be doing a panel on, I have to say. And, we all debated whether this panel was needed, but I think in the interest of at least keeping things a bit upbeat for everybody else, for everybody out there who's actually tuning in, I think it's important to keep some parts of our life going on. Otherwise, you get swarmed by bad messages and sad messages and WhatsApp images the whole day. So with that, thank you so much, the panelists. And I think rather than me trying to do a quick intro, maybe it'd be good if everybody can just go around and do a short intro about themselves. I think Isha has just introduced you guys, but DC, starting with you, just in the order as I see people on the screen, just maybe a quick intro, and then we can get into the questions.
Thanks, Rajat. So I'm Devendra Chawla. I work with Spencer's and Nature's Basket, and by and large being in consumer space and retail over the last couple of decades. Thanks.
Tapan, over to you.
Thank you. I'm Tapan Singhal. I sell insurance, doing that for 30 years. So love my job, love my profession. Pleasure to be here.
Ashish.
Yes, thank you, Rajat. I'm Ashish Dhawan. I lead the enterprise business for Amazon Web Services in India and South Asia. Been with the company for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, worked for companies like Microsoft, Juniper Networks, and Nortel. Great to be with this distinguished panel. Thank you.
Puneet.
Thank you, Rajat. Hi. I've also been 30 years in the financial services sector, and more recently, actually, to this panel, when I'm coming, I'll be talking about banking and about what we call the GCC industry, which is the global capability centers in India.
Oh, fantastic. Rohit?
Hi, thanks, Rajat. I'm Rohit Sabu. I'm President CEO of National Engineering Industries, part of the CK Birla Group. We manufacture bearings. So I think in the panel, I am part of the two who are representing the manufacturing industry. Thank you. Great to
Kamal,
be here.
over to you. Can't hear you, Kamal. You're on mute.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. And thank you, Rajat. This is Kamal Bali. I have spent close to 40 years in the automotive sector. Currently, for the last 8 years, I head the Volvo Group in India, which is into construction equipment, buses, trucks, so on and so forth. So pleasure to be here with you all.
Fantastic, yeah. And thanks, everybody, for making it. And so I'll just get into it. I think we have about 45 minutes for this discussion. So I think I'll just start off with the first point that clearly we are seeing consumer behavior change a lot over this period. And first we thought it's for 3 months, then it becomes 9 months. Now it's almost 13 months. And just starting with you, DC, you just from a consumer goods and retail point of view, how lasting are some of these changes? And how do you sort of, what are these? Is this likely to continue now? Because it looks like a lot of this is going to get etched into our memories and behavior for a long time. I always thought that it's going to come back very quickly. We'll go back to normal, but now the normal seems to be a new normal every month. So just your thoughts on that, and I'll come to others as well on that.
Yeah, thanks, Rajat. And I completely agree with you. I think the pandemic has lasted longer than we all thought. Last year, same time in March, April, we never thought 13 months down the line, we'll still be in pretty much similar, or actually from the last 1 week, 10 days, worse situation. And to that extent, couple of consumer behavior changes, which we saw in the beginning, I think are making a comeback. They never went, but let's say they were tapering down a bit. So this whole focus, I think it doesn't matter whether this is resolved in 2 months or 6 months or 1 year. I think for good, going back to roots is one of the changes which I think is here to stay. This whole flip of this whole, larger and deeper conversation on sustainability, planet, and at a smaller level, while we don't articulate as brands and consumers on a daily way sustainability or people, planet, profit. Fact is, in a smaller way, we are going back to roots. And while earlier we were waiting for the cure for the virus and the vaccines are there, I think by no means that the reliance on kadas and all our natural products is going away, and especially in India, the repository of knowledge which we hold of homemade remedies. I think this thing of immunity being staying with us for good. I think some of these habits of building immunity, saying healthy, will remain much for decades more, even after the pandemic, at least for our generation, which has got shaken with this COVID-19. And I think this habit will continue, and brands must identify relevant shift, bring convenience, and work towards product that marry regularly consumed food with these principles. For example, if I have to make it up, why not have a fortified atta which already has some immunity building products? So there is as many tablets or medicine or capsules you can take after meal and keep carrying it when travel starts. Imagine if they are married to the food you're eating and they come as a part of food. I think that one trend. Then I think this shift to digital, even the shift of branding of commodities have got a little precipitated. And I think we do live in a world where they say you are what you eat. So people really want to know right now, what are they eating? I mean, and the back of the pack, if you see in stores or even when product comes home, has become the new front of the pack. People need more information about the source of the product, the make, the composition, what is inside, what are we eating, what are we consuming. So while a lot of focus has been on aesthetic of the packaging, I think consumers will seek information right up front. And for business, then it becomes very important to provide cues to the consumers to, for them to be assisted on their decision making, and branding a signified hygiene, safety standard, and also in a way, the credibility of source will come in. Another thing which we have seen, and I'm hoping that this time the workforce is not impacted and people don't go back to villages like it happened in the wave one. But definitely it leads to from outsourcing to insourcing. You see, 10, 20 years back was this big outsourcing wave. I call it like, reducing negative labor. And you see, if you're cooking something in the kitchen, then the chopping of the vegetables or onion or cabbage is not something where you add value. It is real cooking. So I think, and on a lighter note, if you type on Google Map, anything right now, it will take you to your bedroom, your hall, the kitchen, and anyway, you're not going to go out much. So pretty much people have traded journeys to replace them from destination to discovering talent. So this whole, again, long-term impact on becoming a home chef, deep cleaning specialist, manicurist, and imagine products. I wrote in ET on this product as a service PaaS, which is taken from this word SaaS, like software as a service. And you can see the sales of pedicure set, epilators, home grooming kit, restaurant style sauces are so much in demand, pre-cut vegetables, recipe ready kits. I think these are not things which will go back completely. They may go back to some bit. Like we even saw in December, January, February, some bit of e-commerce sales tapering down and, crowds back in the store, and then a little bit of reversal again. And it'll again become a reversal when things get better. But obviously, slowly it is getting precipitated, and so is these consumer habits. And not to take much time, Rajat, over to you.
Oh, that's fantastic points about sustainability, traceability, knowing what you're eating, more awareness. I think all the things we've talked about, like I read in an article, 2030 has come in 2020, right? Everything that we were trying to do in 10 years just happened, get accelerated in the last 1.5 years, probably like to get more accelerated. Tapan, coming to you, your business has seen also a huge transformation, everything online, no paper flowing through for policies. I read that the insurance business is completely transformed from being a heavy paper office, and with agents coming out to being completely online. Also, I'm sure with the increase of worry and health, I'm sure you guys have seen a pretty strong rebound. So what are your thoughts on some of these areas? I mean, what will happen to agents and the whole offline business? How does that transform for you guys from an insurance perspective?
Very interesting question, Rajat. I'll give some data points. I'll ask some question to you, and then I'll give the answer of what you asked.
Sure.
The data point is, if I look at crisis for us in insurance has been a regular feature. We have earthquakes, we have tsunamis, we have so we are into this, doing it like every year, and now it's become more. Like in a year, we see 5 crises. Today, we see the earthquake in Northeast now. So it is always there, and we are always in the crisis mode, and we're trying to see how we can help people. So that is something natural to us. In every crisis, the feeling is the consumer becomes aware. So those are insured, they actually get a lot of benefit. They are getting a lot of support, and those are not. So we feel that the insurance penetration will go up. For 10 days after the crisis, it remains that awareness. 11th day is not there. It is respective of how big the crisis has been.
Really, even now.
Now let's talk about pandemic. I think this is more long. I'm talking about short-term crisis, like 3 days, tsunami, 1 day earthquake. But the effect of that remains for some time. Then awareness comes up, people ask, and then after 11th day, there's no. Now let's look at the current crisis. In the month of April last year, the retail health growth for the industry was -3%. When you expect it to be really shooting through the roof, it started picking up. May, June, July, August, September, it touched up to 40% or so. October. Then
40% of what? Sorry, 40% of what?
Growth, retail health growth, compared to last year. I'm talking about the health insurance growth. Then October, November, December, January started going down again, the growth. Now, again, we see an uptake happening in the month of April. So for us to think that human behavior would change permanently because of crisis, I think we are thinking from a mode in which we are present right now.
Yeah, true.
But based on our experience that I've seen, it will last for some time. Then the behavioral change again gets back to what is required. Now let's look at agency. And the question to you is, any one of you in this panel or anybody listening to us who has got up one morning and said, today I'll buy insurance. You must have got up to buy Volvo from Kamal, or you must have got up to go to Nature's Basket. And you said, okay, today I'll buy this, I'll cook this, I'll wear this clothes, or I'll get this. But has any one of you ever got up and said, today I'll buy insurance, man, I'll get the best insurance for myself? None of you. I've yet to meet a person in this world, and as I've been 30 years, meet millions of people. That's my job. I've yet to meet a person who says, Tapan, I'm excited to buy insurance today. It's such a valuable product, saves you in crisis, helps you really well, really costs nothing. It's amazing, But not a single person in the world gets up to buy insurance, and excited about it. And in that scenario, when do you buy insurance? Somebody talks to you about it and tells you, man, look here, this will save you so much, and the cost is just nothing, less than a dinner, Then you get serious into buying insurance. You require somebody to have a conversation with you. Till you require somebody to have a conversation with you for sale, agency remains. Now the issue is, what do you do in a pandemic? The insurers bring in empathy, they bring in support, agents bring in the consultancy, the conversation. You have to digitalize all of this, and that is where I think, and the paper part that you mentioned. So you'll be surprised. Still before the pandemic, it was mandatory by regulations for us to send paper policy. Now, when we talk of improvisation in the industry, we don't realize that we are a heavily regulated industry. So if it's mandatory for me to send a policy to you on paper, whatever distillation I do has no relevance. I still have to send paper policy to you, But the regulator also stepped up the game, and they said, okay, in this, no paper. And they took out no regulations for that. And that is why you see this huge shift from paper to no paper at all. I think that was more from a regulatory perspective, not from insurance companies' competence perspective. They always had the competence. That's why overnight they could do so. But I think the biggest challenge for us is, how do you bring in empathy? How do you bring in conversation? How do you bring in the light understanding of a crisis? How do we train our agents? How do you bring it all together with the customer? I think that is something at a hyper scale that a movement has to happen. And I was pretty happy with my team. And I think we heard this joke before. This selection was not done by CEO or the CTO of the company. It was done by the pandemic. I think in just a month's time, we issue crores of policies online, settling.
Really got cut off. Tapan, are you back? Or maybe he has a network issue. So while he's still, we'll catch up with him. By the way, DC, I'm just having my morning kada, by the way. So just so that's another changed habit. So Ashish, I'll come to you now. Clearly your business is to facilitate a lot of this change, right? through the cloud services, enabling companies to get onto cloud quickly, move a lot of the programs on. So what is your view on this? How have you guys seen this change, and what is the outlook looking like from your perspective?
Yeah, Rajat, no, you're absolutely right. Our job, what we take very seriously at AWS, is to help our customers provide that platform so that they can innovate quickly and make sure that they can experiment fast, fail fast, launch new products and services quickly, so that they can take some of the benefits of changed consumer behavior. So in that, Rajat, what I felt was that there are three broad themes that we are seeing. The first is, like you said, we've covered a decade in days, right? So the adoption of digital has actually, some of the things that people were planning for 2030, 2040 has actually happened in a matter of months, right? The second thing is behavior changes are not linear, and their stickiness is not depending on what customers feel at that moment, but their stickiness is depending on the satisfaction of the new experience, right? So satisfaction effectively means, over a sustained period of time, do they feel that this is necessary for them? And the third thing is, we've also seen is that players who had prepared to be digital faster were able to withstand this pandemic. In fact, were able to satisfy and delight their customers much better. But players who hadn't also are preparing very well now. So across the industry, I can see that there's a lot of preparation going on to be digital. Now let me look at what I've said first. Decade in days, right? You saw remote learning became such a big thing, right? With lots of new startups and even existing companies going into that. Remote working became sort of a done thing. Shopping and consumption saw a surge in e-commerce, and interestingly, there was a surge in more trusted brands rather than new brands. Life at home became something which was, your cafe, your entertainment hub, your cinema house, everything became your home. So everything that you wanted in these places, you wanted now at your home. So there was increased consumption as far as that is concerned. Health and well-being was one of the other big things that we saw, that people started trusting telehealth much more. They wanted to have gyms at home. There was an increased focus on organic, natural, and fresh ingredients. And of course, travel and mobility became extremely hyper-local, right? Very close by to where you were. So there were a lot of changed experiences as far as what we saw in many of these sectors. What I can see going forward is that customers players in each of these sectors who are able to experiment faster, right? Use data very well on understanding their experiences of the customers, what works, what not, what sticks, what doesn't stick, fail fast, make sure that they can increasingly innovate on experiences, are able to succeed much, much more. And in subsequent discussions, I'll be able to give you examples of those. But that's exactly what we are trying to do, help our customers really experiment very, very quickly, right? One of the key things that we can talk later is how the vaccine itself got made, right? Within a record 1 year time. And that is a testimony to cloud computing, data analytics, etc. Because without that, the vaccine could not have been made. And that's exactly what the whole business case for this whole cloud computing sector is. Rajat, you're on mute.
So I think that's clearly, agility and speed to market clearly is, all the new product life cycles, everybody's come out with much faster products. So I think the whole game has changed. So agility clearly driven by cloud. Tapan, good to have you back. Maybe you can just finish your thoughts, and then I'll go to Puneet, Rohit, and Kamal as well.
Well, I think the point again which Ashish was mentioning, sorry, it got dropped out, and that is one of the things which is happening, but you continue the continuity. It's about agility, it's about bringing things together. And when I was looking at AI, ML come through, a lot of people are talking about that machines take over. But in the crisis, the human emotions plays a very, very big role. I think we look at it, no, right from the way even our country, what is going through, the leaders, the way they're coming together, the way the empathy part comes together. I think this also brings it to the front that come what may, the empathy, the human emotions has to be integrated in whatever solution we're going to provide. No, it can't be cold, it can't be just straight through, a fast and efficient. It has to a lot of emotions to be flowed into whatever we do. I think that's the only point I'm trying to make. Over to you.
Thanks, Yatappan. Good point, sir. And actually, this whole point about lasting, 4 to 5 months. And you saw that, right? Like I think DC also mentioned, once the malls opened, everybody was back in the malls. Masks were gone last 3 months. That's why we had this new wave now. So people forget very quickly as well, right? So let's hope, at least on crisis front, people's memories are short and some of these things will go back to, to normal. Puneet, coming to you, from a banking point of view, GCC point of view, that's an area where also from our sector, we are seeing a huge amount of work coming into GCCs more and more because companies are rethinking why do we need so many resources. So just your thoughts on lasting changes, how are companies coping, both from a banking sector as well, because we just seen a huge change with Citibank now, the latest news on that. So your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Raja. The Citibank news was a little depressing. I'm one of the people who was involved in setting it up earlier. Wow. So yeah, it was a little sad. But the reality is that from a banking side, we saw it as a very divergent set of behavioral changes. So one is, of course, the rapid adoption, which we've had on the digital front. And it was pretty surprising to see senior citizens also trying to learn and understand how do we do internet banking and getting smartphones and saying that we want to use mobile banking. So on one hand, we had that. On the other side, the behavioral change was that I need more savings. And very surprisingly, we saw that the amount of cash people were keeping at home also went up. So, this is a slightly dichotomous kind of a behavioral change if you think about it, because it was on one hand saying, I want to become more digital. On the other hand, we were saying, I need more cash. And the third surprising change, which we have seen happen during this pandemic period from a banking sector lens, has been that there was a big move towards challenger banks, the new digital only banks who have these really suave and fast front ends on mobiles, mobile only kind of things. We saw customers moving back towards banks for a relationship kind of an approach, saying, how can you help me navigate through this? Can I pick up the phone and speak to somebody and drive a solution for myself by talking physically to somebody? So that was the interesting change which we have seen. Now, which of these will stay and which of these will go away? As many of the co-panelists have said, human memory can be short at some points in time. I think the important thing is for us to continue to be agile and not necessarily go with a fad. Like digitization, absolutely, it enables, you have to complement it with some of the real world and the brick and mortar part of it too.
Cool. And any thoughts on how the GCC world changes because of this? Because you clearly see a huge uptake on GCCs now. I mean, that's by far the fastest growth area that we are seeing in Deloitte. How do you see that changing given this whole digitization and technology enablement?
So I definitely see a very, very strong uptake and a big push. Now, it so happened due to a variety of reasons and no one to blame, but the GCCs managed to stand up to and support their global organizations at the start of the pandemic much better than the third-party service providers were able to do. And that has registered with global corporations across the board. So suddenly, we are seeing even a change at which when the India heads of GCCs, at which global table they sit at, that is changing. The kind of global decisions which are being made in the firms, how they are involved in. And clearly, there is a very strong shift towards making GCCs much more core and strategic, as opposed to just being another remote part of the organization, which is providing us access to good talent and solutions. So there is that shift. And I think that is going to be pretty permanent for some time to come. I mean, for a reasonably medium-term future.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Puneet. That's really good stuff. Rohit, coming to you, just from the automotive space, and both you and Kamal will maybe talk a bit about the impact of all these changes on the automotive world. Obviously Ubers, people using less, going to their own cars, clearly a big change. How is that likely to get impacted, and what happens next in this sector?
Yeah, so I'll talk about two sets of behaviors. One is between our company, like a auto component company, and the OEMs, and the second is the final consumer experience. So if you see, normally, if we had to sell our product to OEMs or to any government organization, we had to visit them at least 3 to 5 times. And now all that behavior has changed. And 3 to 5 times, you can imagine if I have a half an hour meeting in Bombay or a 1 hour meeting in Bombay, I had to go in the morning, come back in the evening. So the entire day was essentially gone. Now it is through this virtual medium, it has become so efficient that people are on time, they discuss and they go back on time. So that has come as a very welcome change. And the best part is that our OEMs have embraced this system to the next level, in the sense that they are improving this technology beyond Zoom, in the sense where you can share your drawings, you can concurrently engineer drawings with the R&D people. So that part is becoming very, very efficient. And
is this likely to stay, Rohit, as things open up? Will you still be expected to take a flight and come and show these drawings in person, or do you think that people will sustain with it and say, okay, we don't need to do that? I mean, are you likely to see a change in that?
See, I believe that physical contact will come back. But I think if it will be a hybrid mode. If we were doing 5 visits, maybe we'll have to do 1 visit, maybe the final meeting or something like that. Because it's not only us, it's the OEMs who have realized it is much more efficient. And there is no waiting time, and we are working together. So that has come as a major improvement. In fact, what I would say that during the pandemic time, we did work from home for all non-manufacturing people, all non-production people, and our R&D productivity went up 35%. It was I mean, so great. We are always looking to improve our productivity of our people, and they were at home. Of course, we provided with them with the infrastructure, the internet, and all that. This thing, they were at home, they were at peace, I would suppose, and there was no wastage of time in discussion. And the discussions were always on phone or through these internet media portals or something like that. I would say the efficiency tremendously improved. So going in the future, maybe after 1 year of the pandemic being over, there will be a hybrid mode, because physical contact, I think, coming from old school, is still necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So on the consumer side. On the consumer side, for example, I've known a lot of dealers and this thing. So when you talk to them, the automotive dealers, I'm saying, when you talk to them, they mention that more and more people want the car to be tried, a car or a motorcycle to be tried at their home. Earlier, they would come to the showroom. They would take it from there. Now they want it in the car, and they will specify that only one person should come. And so these are the they maintain social distance norms and this thing. And the thing is, the research that people have started doing on the internet for a vehicle has gone up tremendously. I don't have the exact numbers, but it has gone up tremendously. The people know much more about the vehicle than the person who is coming with the vehicle. They will tell them all the technical details and this, that, and all these things. So that part has changed. And the thing is, now the consumer is feeling more, in the sense, empowered. Earlier, dealers will say that, no, you come to my showroom, I will explain it, everything to you. Now the dealers are more than happy to send it to the homes. And of course, people are more and more wanting to avoid public transport. That is true. I mean, even people who can't afford, they are taking loans from here and there and trying to buy a vehicle. I don't know what's the situation of Uber or this thing, especially the ones where they were sharing rides and all that. But that is the change, and this change, I would say, will stay at least for the medium term, meaning 1.5 years. I would like to give a small example. If you had been to Japan for the last 10-15 years, you would have found people wearing masks then also. It was for two reasons. One was pollen, and one if they had a virus or something like that. We will see those kind of things and the social distancing norms. Even now, if I have to meet my my close family, whom I know are not COVID, we would like to sit in the open. We would like to sit at a little distance. That has come inside us. That will become a so-called behavior change for the future. That's what I think. Thanks.
Thanks. And good observations. Yeah, lots of interesting thoughts, and especially around the whole OEM market, direct meeting. And a lot of that will, I think many of those things, like you said, physical contact is important, but it will take over. Kamal, coming to you, I think we had lots of questions. I don't know how much we'll get through. Coming to you, just how are you seeing the market change? Volvo, from cars to buses, are you seeing public transport go down, personal transport go up? What is your sort of thought on how you guys are coping with this change?
Yeah, thank you, Rajat. I think a lot of good points have already been made by my co-panelists. I will not, in the interest of time, repeat many of the good points.
Oh, take your time. Yeah,
have been made. But I think just to come back to one point, digress a bit on Puneet's point on GCC. I think this is a very great opportunity for India, and I completely echo what Puneet has said. We too have a fairly large GCC. We have about 3,000 people, and I can see the shift which is coming in the mindsets in Sweden of moving more and more talent to India and getting more talent from India. It all started with maybe cost arbitrage about 10 years or 5 years ago. But today it is because of talent and because of ability of India to be agile and to be able to deliver. I think this is one very important point I want to make, and we as Indians can be very proud of this. And when we compare with Poland or with Gothenburg or with Australia or with US, I think we have performed much better on the GCC front. So that's a short little point I thought I wanted to.
That's a very good point. Very good.
Build on what Puneet said. Coming to consumer preferences, I think very clearly they've never been easy to predict, and very, very difficult to change. They have been stubborn and often impervious to marketing communication pleas, which we may all have been making over a period of time. But this pandemic changed the game faster than the brands could have ever imagined. What we could have done all jointly over several decades, I think this pandemic did much faster in a few months. So as far as our industry is concerned, the heavy automotive industry, the commercial vehicles, the cars, the buses, I think we are going to be now ruled by the acronym called CASE, C-A-S-E, which is connected, autonomous, which is more and more automated, shared mobility for S, and electric mobility, electric and alternate fuels. I think this is going to be, these four terms are going to define the future of the automotive industry. And we can see very, very clearly the increase of digital tools. It's blurring the lines between work, lifestyle, and social interaction, and between domains like mobility, health, insurance. So we are also seeing another very major shift which we have noticed in the last 7 to 8 months is that the customer really doesn't want products anymore. He wants outcomes and solutions, which means he's looking at a 360-degree solution. And there is no one company which can provide a complete 360-degree solution. Therefore, the new era of partnerships is going to start. Partnerships to be able to provide a holistic 360-degree solution to the consumer. So I think that's another shift which we are noticing. And from organization, from our own people point of view, how do we really translate, or how do we really transform to these kind of changes which the customer is going through, is really from SOP driven or a rule driven organization to a values driven and a principle driven organization, because you will not have answers to all the new questions in your SOP. You may not have even SOPs for many of the processes. So you will have to really depend on your organization to be on your people so that they can use values. So therefore we started number of initiatives on this line. So that was the second piece. And the third piece which I'm seeing is that embracing holistic sustainability for organizations is going to be the key. Today, the consumer is watching his or her brand on how it is faring on the 3 or 4 elements of sustainability, whether it is societal element, the environmental element, the economic element, or the ethical element of sustainability. So how are we performing on those? And consumer is actually putting a lot of tick marks on some of those elements. So organizations have to perform very, very well on holistic sustainability issues. And finally, I think COVID has had an impact on global economy, purchasing decisions, behaviors, and clearly an era is fading away. But I believe that the new era holds tremendous promise for India, especially with the rebalancing of the global value chains. And I believe around $4 trillion of global manufacturing is going to get rebalanced over the next 3 to 4 years. And India has a great opportunity. So I think we need to really be agile, as many people have said, to really transform to this new world. And the good news is for India that the starting line has suddenly shifted for everyone. Everybody will have to start from the same starting line. So advanced world will reduce some of the advantage it had. And I think India can really count on this opportunity. I stop there. Many more points there.
Fantastic. So you brought in some good points about partnership, sustainability. I have a different view on sustainability. I think we as Indian consumers talk about sustainability. When it comes to paying for it, nobody wants to really pay for it, but we'll debate that some other time. Because, we see that all the time, right? When you look at the aspirations, it's all sustainability and recycling and all, but we are the first guys to go and buy the cheapest products. Not just Indian consumers, globally you see rise of Primark and all these discounted brands. There's no sustainability play there. DC, coming to you quickly, and I think we have, I don't know, Isha, how much time do we have? Then I'll just do a quick round of, okay, so we have short time. So just last thoughts around DC, around, I think there was a question you wanted to talk about, the whole piece around, seamlessness and omni-channel. Just what does that mean to you guys? And maybe we'll come back to everybody on that quickly on that point.
I think we should stop to see there's a lot of debate, around this omni-channel and, physical. And I think we have to only see from the consumer's eyes, keep the consumer at the center. Consumers want a product or a service. And even Kamal said the same thing, consumers want a service, they want a solution now. It's not about a product. And actually it brings in the whole partnerships and, omni-channel. At the center, the customer needs to be served, whether you have to make partnerships for that. And if you see, there are enough examples in the world, and Ashish spoke, you see this, the vaccine was, a lot of companies which normally even compete came together to make the vaccine. Even in the electric vehicle car space, if you see, companies are joining hand which once used to be competitors. So this whole concept of frenemies or co-opetition, which is cooperation and competition coming together, and even Kamal spoke. I'm a big believer of partnerships and creating an ecosystem, because you may, as a company or a brand, may not have the complete solution. You may depend on others to come together. And I think that's where the whole omni-channel or even serving the consumer will bring to. Like, we have lack of time, but I'll just say right in the beginning last year in April, when the lockdown started, our e-commerce orders on the app just went through the roof. And if you remember, the slots not being there and people getting slots for 5 days or 10 days, even for essentials. So we just broke the whole thing through a WhatsApp chatbot, and even tying up very unconventionally with Uber, and had thousands of cars of Uber delivering tens of thousands of deliveries per day. And imagine educating and taking the Uber drivers to be delivery people and teaching them contactless delivery and creating an ecosystem. And then we extended it to at least 9 more startups like Swiggy, Rapido, even Flipkart approached us. So we could do this because, at that moment, who would have thought that industries or companies which have nothing to do with each other will come together and serve the consumer? You may not be able to build a digital bridge overnight. You may have to depend on ecosystem. And I think if you see, everybody did speak about it. Kamal spoke, Ashish spoke, even Puneet. Everybody eventually, I think so. Partnerships are going to be the order of the day. It's been happening digitally. This digital ecosystem of WeChat and has been around for many years. But I think store as a platform of physically also partnership happening, which is partly physical, partly digital, will be stitched. And we don't have time today, but I would have really spoken on the need of this whole single view of data and single view of the customer, and how that piece is yet to take place, at least in Indian companies. But I'm sure we'll run out of time, Rajat.
No, thanks so much. I think the single view, I mean, at the end of the day, the customer doesn't care. He or she wants a product. You have to deliver it, omni, not omni. I think they don't look at the world so staggered. Last words from everybody. Ashish, your thoughts on that? Omni,
Yeah, Rajat. So, well, today I think I completely agree with what DC was saying, but customers are actually losing patience with brands that cannot seamlessly support transitioning experiences between mobile, web, email, SMS, call centers, or even some in-person engagement. So, what they want is that their brand should be able to transition their experiences through all the channels. At the same time, provide a personalized experience. So it should not be a random experience, right? The personalization bit is getting more and more important. And we are seeing a lot of our customers use machine learning to actually create these personalized experience. In fact, Tapan is here. His company does that really well. Create personalized experiences for insurance customers. In fact, not just for the customers, but even their agents, for them to suggest the right products. I think they do that really well. So I think that is going to be the key. How do you make sure that not just omni-channel, but make sure it's highly personalized?
Thanks. Puneet, last word from you.
Rajat, I think people have said everything. That personal touch continues to be important, and our customer is never uniform, a single customer. Our customer is such a diverse base for any industry everywhere else. During this period, we wanted to make sure, the whole piece of channel that a banker goes to the vulnerable people above the age of 70 and sits with them and helps them do what they want to do, which for the other customers, the younger ones, we are pushing them out towards the digital channels and they're able to do themselves. So absolutely, there is the need. From a company's perspective, it is entirely about we as a company staying close, put the customer in the center of every decision you make. It's actually pretty simple. It's difficult to execute. The concept is straightforward.
Thanks. Rohit, last word from you.
Yeah, I think customer at the center is absolutely a no-brainer. The thing is that the technology intervention will be very, very high, and the data requirement. We will always have this fear that our personal data will go away. But today, the data of the consumer, whoever has the data, will be the winner. For example, if you see Cred, they don't have any revenue. The only thing they are selling is credit card data. And they are a unicorn already. So that is the kind of thing that is moving in this direction. One more thing I would like to add, that this is a major disruption which happens once in a century or something like that. And I have a personal feeling that something good will come out of the disruption. It will change the way we do things, absolutely. But something good. We will come out much more efficient. We will come out much more agile. And yes, it will be painful, and some will go away. Some companies will go away. but whoever will survive will be very, very fit. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Agility, sustainability. Tapan, last word from you.
Okay, so for me now, the omni-channel concept is not only about my company, and the customer sentiment not only about my company now. I think Devendra somewhere alluded to that. So if I look at, and Ashish mentioned about me choosing AWS, as where I'm hosting my entire core now. The reason was I saw AWS allowing a lot of people to innovate on the platform, and I could plug into so many solutions at a hyper speed. So the world is transformed now. So it is not about solutions that I'm thinking about here. I think it's happening all across the world. Platforms which allow you to connect, and the center of consumer is no more about my company thinking of how it is to be there. How does it happen for everybody? And the consumer gets a solution to his problems. I think it's no more about products, it's no more about what it is about. So omni-channel concept is a pretty old concept now, and we're talking about something that was 10, 15 years back we're talking about. Today, start thinking about how do you make the entire experience or the solution provided to the customer, which goes across boundaries and across products and across companies together. And the agility has to be at that hyper speed that right now maybe I have 3 people here with whom I provide a solution. In the next 1 hour, there'll be 2 more. And the plug and play for the customer should be at such hyper speed that he or she does not see any difference in terms of from where it is coming, but gets an experience which is beyond what the customer was thinking from an experience perspective. So I think we have to move to that kind of positioning now, which has to be there. So that was my. And for such a discussion, have more time, Rajat. I think.
I know. It seems very tight. We had 6
I'm loving the discussion. The way you put it together.
We barely got through one. Yeah.
Yeah. Right,
last word from you, Kamal. You're on mute. Kamal, you're on mute.
I think a lot of good points have already been made, but I think just to bring an example of my industry. I mean, in our industry, we largely operate with known customers. So I think our customers are all very clearly defined. And what customers want is value at the end of the day. So now, whether it is using telematics at our own end and sharing the machine utilization data with the customer can make him feel very great, because in our industry, remember, it's only across the world, only less than 20% of the fuel which you put in a vehicle is used to move the vehicle from point A to point B. 80% is all wasted, either in idling or in going with zero loads or whatever. So the opportunity is huge. If organizations like us, the OEMs, can provide that telematics utilization data to the customer would be delighted, because at the end of the day, customer wants 3 things: maximum bang for the buck, zero downtime, zero accidents. I mean, I think these are some of the requirements the customer has. I think so. Data is a very crucial element in our game, and the kind of value which we can bring to the customer. I think these are the things. Now you can use whichever channel you want to do, and at the end of the day, the personal touch will never be replaced by completely digital ways. As somebody pointed out very, very correctly, there can be 4 digital meetings, but there will have to be at least 1 physical meeting, and that's going to be the way forward. Yeah.
Thanks. I think that's a great point. I didn't know there was only 20% of fuel was used for that. So that's an interesting stat to have. But thanks, everyone. I think Isha has been signaling to me to wrap up. Sorry, very little time for a lot of intelligent and also very diverse views coming from auto, banking, FMCG, and from a platform. But thanks so much, everybody, for your wonderful inputs. I'll try and collate these and send these around to you guys. But thank you so much for your time. Please stay safe and well. And, look forward to catching up once we are through this madness.